And welcome to another Down the Rabbit Hole video. I wanted to talk about Warrior again on the Vectrex. When I did my first playthrough and kind of initial review, etc., I did mention that at first I kept falling into the pits, and I put a little thing on that video mentioning I did manage to fix it later. So I just thought I'd do a quick video here showing how I fixed that and just exactly what the problem is. As you can see here, I mean, I'm just playing on the default. I've just fired up the game, and I'm way off where the pits are on my overlay, but I keep falling into them. So what the heck is going on there? I did manage to fix that up. Now, this is something to do with the calibration of the screen. George from Fury Unlimited put in a little ability to modify the calibration of your gameplay, because I guess different Vectrexes, Vectri, not sure what the right phrase is, they've got different tolerances in their resistors and capacitors and all that kind of stuff. And so I guess the initial batch of Warrior titles or ROMs he was playing with didn't line up very well with the overlay. So he built in calibration options so that you can actually move where your little characters are, where the playfield is, relative to the overlay. And that was clearly what was way out of whack when I was playing it the first time. I have now fixed that, and I thought I'd do a little video that shows you exactly how I fixed that. So to fix this issue, I mentioned before you want to hit number 1 at the intro screen here, and that'll take you to the calibration menu. Now with this, and again I mentioned this in my much more detailed, in-depth review of Warrior, you can move the pits around here, try and get them lined up to the overlay as best you can. At least that's what you think you're supposed to do, and then hit number 1 to go to the next part of calibration. When you do that, you now have the ability to put your Warrior Knight inside this box. Now, I've seen other people calibrating their copy of Warrior, and they can get the Warrior inside the box a lot better than I can. Clearly, whatever combination of components is in my Vectrex, it thinks everything should be up and to the right a little bit, because I just can't get this guy fully in there. But that's okay. If I get him down and to the left as best I can, that's almost right. Let me hit number 1 and continue on to the game itself. So now if I start a game, my warriors are a little better centered inside their boxes, but unfortunately if I head to the space between the two pits where I should be able to walk, I'm still falling. It's like my machine doesn't realize that those pits should be better centered. And it just kept happening, and I was getting kind of frustrated, and I thought, okay, clearly I'm doing something wrong because my pits are centered correctly. Those two X's are right where they need to be. Why does my guy keep falling in the pit? And that's when I looked up in the instruction booklet here. It's about, I don't know, 4 pages or so, and in the center area there is a whole section that talks about calibration. How do you get to that menu, etc. And I was reading through the calibration symptoms and solutions, and I noticed the second listing here talks about symptom. Warriors appear to fall into a pit when they are still outside of a pit edge. And I thought, aha, that's exactly my problem. It says in the solution here, overcompensate for this discrepancy when calibrating the pits by moving them in the opposite direction of the problem. And that's not what I had been doing. It says here, as an example, if the warriors are falling into the pits when standing outside of the left edges, mine's kind of the opposite, it's the upper right, move the pits more to the right. And that's when I realized, oh, wait a minute, I need to move the pits in the opposite direction. I'll do that here and show you how that does actually solve the problem. So here we are back at the calibration menu, and I've got my pits. So since everything seems to be kind of up and to the right a little bit, like if my guy happens to walk around up there, he falls into the pits. My Vectrex thinks the pits are up there. So George's instructions say push the pits in the opposite direction of the problem. So actually I want to slide everything down and to the left. And if I now hit number 1, put my warrior in the center, and now play, now, actually, I can walk in the space between the pits just fine. Look at that. The game is playable. Okay, I died, but it is playable. And this is a much better solution. I am now able to play the game fully and not keep falling into the pits. It's great. The one snag, as you're noticing, is I've got these sort of X's sitting there hovering in the middle of the lower left area of the screen. And that's a bit distracting because it's got nothing to do with where the pits are. Now the Vectrex knows there's a pit there, and there's a pit, and there's the other edge of the pit. Let's see if I can swing around. See, I can walk around the edge of the pit properly now. It's like I've calibrated it correctly. The only thing is I've got these X's sitting here. So to solve that, I go back to the calibration menu. Once again, because I've reset the Vectrex, I have to pull my play field down and to the left. But if I hit number 2 on the controller, it actually turns off the X's. And then I hit number 1 to center my warrior in his box, as best I can. And now if I play, alright, so now if I go in, there's none of those X's floating around in space. And okay, I died, but at least now I can move on and I can play the game just fine. I can walk between the spaces, I can get him, and I've been actually really enjoying the game this way. This is great. This is the game properly calibrated for my Vectrex. Again, as per the instructions, you will probably need to recalibrate your machine a little differently. I guess basically have a look at where do your knights actually fall into the pit. Is it a little bit up to the right like mine? Is it down to the left? Where does it happen on your copy of Warrior, on your Vectrex? And then just move the pits in the opposite direction. It's very important that you do the opposite direction thing, and that will solve your problem. I'm really enjoying this now. I've been trying to get my way through Warrior because there's several different enemies, and I've managed to get, I think, to the 3rd boss. I briefly once saw the 4th boss, but I didn't last long enough against him, so maybe at some point I will get farther into the game and I'll be able to show you my success here. But boy, I really love this game. It is really fantastic. I know a lot of people don't have their copies of Warrior yet, and I'm sorry, but I hear more copies are rolling out, and so when you get it, you're going to love it. Oh, one other last thing. I do find I really get into the game quite feverishly here. Like I find that, I guess much like any fighting game, I'm just swinging away and really getting excited about my gameplay. And I was starting to think, you know, these Vectrex analog stick controllers are not exactly cheap, and they're not going to last forever. I wonder if maybe I should be going a little easier on this thing, which is easier said than done, or I thought maybe I should ask George if maybe if I get one of those modified Sega Genesis controllers, can I use that? Because that would be a nice alternative. He says, yeah, it'll definitely work. I mean, you don't need to have an analog thumbstick to make Warrior work. It would work with just a D-pad and button. So I might actually end up doing that. He did say, oh, what do you know? I succeeded against that opponent. He did tell me, oh, by the way, he saw my video review and he mentioned that he thought it was funny when I was talking about taking on this opponent with the devil horns, how I had a hard time defeating him. George says, actually, that's a female warrior that I'm taking on right now. I don't know if that's from the original coin-op or just his particular collection of baddies he created, but he found it funny that I mentioned this as being an opponent that's a him when really it's a she. Yeah, so George said you can definitely use a digital controller, D-pad, like modded Sega Genesis controller. I think, I know there are homebrew companies that make those kinds of modded controllers that you could use. I think also PlayStation controllers work, like PlayStation 2s. But he did say you don't need to have an analog thumbstick to play the game. You can just do Warrior fine and dandy with the D-pad. So there you go. That's worth noting. All right. Well, there we go. I'm going to enjoy more of my Warrior here. I just thought I'd show how you can calibrate the screen so that your pits do line up properly. Again, remember, go in the direction opposite of the problem. Even though I do keep falling in. You can see I'm slightly on the edge there. That's because I'm not looking square on my Vectrex as I'm recording this video. But I can make it work. I can make it line up properly. All right, well, until next time, I'll see you down the rabbit hole.